Another great Monday night matchup on hand, Pittsburgh and Denver. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here along with Steve Budin. Every Monday night throughout this football season, we're here to break it down for you from a point spread perspective. And Steve, we're only 2 weeks removed from that lousy game between Washington and Philadelphia. Great game last week, going right down to the final minute with New Orleans and Atlanta. You know, tonight we've got Pittsburgh coming off a bye, taking on a Denver team coming off its first loss of the season. Last week at Baltimore, they were coming off a bye and they got hammered by the Ravens. I know on our Sunday show we talked about that game. I liked Baltimore a lot last week, and I mean they just totally handed it to the Broncos. But now Denver back at home. They're 6-1 straight up and against the spread. They're undefeated at home, 3-0. But let's face it, you know, at home, they have played a bunch of cupcakes, as I like to call them. Steelers, meanwhile, after suffering a couple of early season losses, they've rebounded. They've won 3 straight. They're 5-2 straight up on the season. I think we've got a darn good game to watch, at least tonight. It's a tough game, I think, to pick a side, which naturally leads us over to the total discussion on this game.
Well, you know, the one thing is that, you know, the one loss Denver had was against the Ravens. And of all the teams, the Ravens really compared to the Steelers the most because they play that physical defense. I think that gave Denver a problem. I think that's going to give Denver a problem again. In the same respect, can't argue with Denver. They're for real. You know, 6-1, Cinderella story. They've got tons of momentum. You know, they're bringing it all to this game. Very hard to pick a side. You know, when you look at the total, every game on Monday night seems to go over. I mean, until you start seeing some unders, I don't think you can go any way but over.
Exactly.
And we went over last week, right? We won it. It was my only game that I won here on the show. Luckily, I went 2 for 3 with my premium picks. Now 4 and 5 with those premium picks. Once again, disclaimer. These are just free picks.
Right, 4 out of 5 the past 2 weeks with your premium plays coming into this weekend. But you're right. We went with the over last week with Atlanta and New Orleans, and that was easy. And that's been the trend on Monday night. 8 out of the 9 Monday night games this year have gone over the posted price. And as a matter of fact, if you go back over the past 2 years, 19-5-1. 19-5-1. That's what the overrun has been. And you know, Broncos, though, of course, they have generally played under at home, which is kind of surprising because when you think about it, the last couple of years the Broncos haven't played any defense, and yet 8 of their last 9 have gone under at home. But I think you have to throw that out because you brought up a point earlier that Baltimore, the style of play that the Ravens had. Last week, they attacked Denver through the air. Joe Flacco had a great big game against this Broncos defense. You know, people think Pittsburgh is a running team. Steelers are not a running team per se anymore.
And I think they're going to abandon the run and realize that they have to pass. And I think that's another reason why the over looks so good in this game.
Right. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw the ball. This total is 39.5 points. I looked at the weather. You know, even if you have a little bit of inclement weather, that favors, to me, a passing team because bottom line is the quarterback knows where he's throwing it. The wide receivers know the routes they're running.
Defense has to react.
Right, and it's much harder to react in inclement weather than it is to run your routes. And I always think, you know, people in the old days used to always tell me when I was breaking into this business, oh, you know, in inclement weather, you look for a low-scoring game. And I always think, well, why? That doesn't make any sense.
Just a couple of weeks back in that snowstorm, we saw what New England did, putting up 50-some-odd points.
Right, 59 against Tennessee. So I'm with you. I think that we have to take the over in this game, keep riding that Monday night trend out. I think that you're getting a nice deflated price. I think the odds makers have undervalued this game at 39.5.
Well, they see it as a defensive struggle. It's just not going to be that.
Right, and listen, you know, 2 weeks ago, that Washington-Philadelphia game, we had a Washington team that couldn't score, a Philadelphia team that was coming off a miserable 13-9 loss at Oakland. Everybody thought, oh, I think the total was like 43.5 points.
I know, I gave out the over on the show.
Right. And
I mean the under on the show.
Right.
I gave out the under on the show.
And everybody thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. What happens? Backdoor touchdown, meaningless touchdown for Washington with 2.5 minutes to play. Boom, pushes that total over. And I think this is another situation where you've got to take advantage of the odds makers' error at undervaluing the price of this total and play it over.
20 years ago, they always used to say you always play the Monday night underdog at home. And obviously we know that that never comes out to be true. Now I think you have to play Monday nights over until we see a trend that's different.
And plus, let's remember, Kyle Orton has thrown the ball a lot this year for Denver, and he's been very successful. When you've got 2 quarterbacks throwing the ball, that means the clock is constantly stopping. You get more plays in, and I think that that is only going to lead itself to this game probably I'd say in the mid-40s probably instead, easily going over.
So we're both going with the over here.
Absolutely. Let's ride the over. That'll do it for today's show. And remember, we are here every Sunday and Monday with your football breakdowns from a gambling perspective. And make sure you check out the website because we've got more free picks from the nation's top handicappers, your scores, your odds, your injuries, your weather conditions, not just for the NFL, but for college football, the NBA, and of course college basketball, guys, right around the corner. That'll do it for this week, and we'll catch you again next Sunday.